Welcome to Smartboard 101. My name is Robert Rocha, and I'm an Instructional Technology Specialist for the El Paso Independent School District. In today's video segments, we're going to be talking about how to actually use a smartboard in your classroom. EPISD has numerous amounts of smartboards throughout our district, and a lot of times teachers get intimidated about wanting to use different technologies in their classroom. And so today we're going to show you about how to get adjusted and getting to know your smartboard. I am a level 1 smartboard certified teacher that I got from actual Smart Tech, and so hopefully the information we're bringing to you today will be very benefit you in your classroom. As I look back at my computer screen over here, I want you to know that with the smartboard there's actually going to be two pieces that you're going to be using. And there's the actual smartboard itself, which you see in the classroom. It's a giant whiteboard that you would see. And the next thing that we actually use is going to be the actual software. Now, smart boards are very expensive items. They cost about between $1,100 and $1,200 for a smart board. And yes, that's a lot of money. But one of the reasons you pay for that high price is the actual software is extremely powerful. And that really makes it an interactive classroom and helps to offer differentiated instruction for your classroom. And so today, again, we're going to go in, we're going to show you how to use that smartboard, how to get adjusted to it. And so that way, starting tomorrow, you can start getting that smartboard and have your kids come up and actually using it and using it in different ways. And so, like I mentioned before, it's those two different pieces that I have here. Now, if you notice in my studio, I don't have a smartboard, but what I do have is called the Smart Tech Overlay. And what that is, it's an overlay that they put over a TV screen and allows me to have interactivity within my actual lesson itself. It works the same exact way as a smartboard in your classroom, and everything that I'm going to present to you today is actually going to be the same thing. You can do everything I'm doing on this Smart Tech piece here, you can do in your classroom with your actual smartboard itself. Now, one of the things that EPISD does offer for our teachers is a level 1 certification training, and that's a 6-hour training. And so what I thought we would do today is kind of show you some of those different pieces we do within that level 1 certification training. So this is part of the presentation that I would actually use with my teachers. And so in my level 1, I'm going to talk about just getting started, getting to know your actual smartboard itself. In future TV segments, I'm going to be talking about working with ink-aware applications and basic design of smart notebook software, and of course instructional design with interactive whiteboards. But today our focus is going to be about getting started. And notice now, kind of jumped around and it kind of didn't work exactly the way I wanted it to. And that's okay. Technology doesn't always work the way you want it to in your classroom. The main thing is don't panic. You can always go back and go back to where you were and just to be comfortable with technology. You can't really break it. And if you do, we have our technicians out there that can help you guys to fix it. So let's go ahead and move on here. And so our objectives for today are going to be knowing what hardware components are required to set up your smartboard. A lot of times teachers get a smartboard and they actually put it up and say, what do I do next? It's not working for me. So I'm going to show you all the different tools and cables that you need to actually get your smartboard working in your classroom. Actually, how to use the buttons and pins for the smart notebook, or it's actually smartboard, has different pins and different buttons on the board. So I'm actually going to show you how to use those particular buttons and so forth. How to use an on-screen keyboard. Main thing about smartboard is you don't want to be going back to your computer looking for everything. You actually want to be up to the smartboard itself, and you can actually type within the smartboard. Of course, I wouldn't write a whole paragraph on that, but maybe a short web address that you may need or anything like that for your actual smartboard itself. And of course, how to actually write on the interactive smartboard. So this is going to be the first segments we're going to talk about today. Okay. Now, looking here, again, since I'm in a TV studio, I really don't have a smart board. I just have my smart overlay that I have. But in a typical classroom, you would need to have these three items here. Of course, you actually have a smart board itself. And this is, of course, a 600 series that you see to your right. This one's actually kind of the fancy one that actually has the speakers on it. And of course, the next thing you need to have is the computer itself. It could be a desktop, it could be a laptop, whatever you have, it's convenient to you to use. And of course, the last thing we're going to need is the actual projector. We want to be able to project whatever the computer screen is to our smartboard. And so once that's achieved, we can start to adding those interactivity and actually using the board with our students and so forth. But once I'm there, like, geez, I got all three pieces. How do I connect it? What are the other things that I need? Well, to connect the actual smartboard to the computer, you need a USB cable, just a standard USB cable. They come with a 16-foot cable, but you can get them in additional lengths or longer lengths if you like, or a shorter length if you don't need something that long. And of course, in some schools, they do have a Bluetooth capability, so there's no actual cables at all. That really adds a nice feature. There's nothing to trip over or to get caught up in if you use the Bluetooth feature that they have. And of course, so here again, it's that USB cable. And notice now what I did with my smartboard. I actually have this little bitty square here that I kind of hide up, and that's called move to reveal. It's one of the techniques in our video segments we're going to show you how to actually do with your smartboard. So here we're going to have our USB cable, and notice where the green line is connected right there. That's actually where it would actually be found on the smartboard. There will be a little pigtail, and you would actually connect the two pieces together, and of course you connect the other end to the USB to your actual computer itself. And again, I know this is not the best picture here that we have, but if you notice there's a little bitty dot that's going to be right about here, and I don't have, let me see if I can maybe write on this real quickly. My pen's not really working with me for today, and that's okay. I'm going to go back over here and get another pen, and I'm going to go to this pen right here. We're going to go to a red pen. Just give me one moment. And I'm going to select this red pen. And in this little corner right there, you're going to see a light when you actually connect your USB cable to it. And that light's going to be red, amber, or going to be green. When you first connect it, it's going to be red, letting you know that it's trying to actually upload and work the smartboard the drivers are working for it. Once it's connected, it's going to be green. If those lights are flashing red or they're flashing green, then chances are there's something wrong with the software, or there's actually something wrong with the board itself. That light, once it's working properly, should be a steady green. If for some reason your smartboard's not connected, you can always call the help desk at EPISD or contact your instructional technology specialist. They'll come help you get that corrected for you at any time in your classroom. Okay, so when I come back over here now, I have one more cable that I need, and it's called a VGA or RGB cable, and that's actually going to connect my projector to the actual laptop or desktop that I have. Now, I don't have the best cable right here, but a VGA cable kind of looks like this. They tend to have these thick ends on them, and they're usually blue. This tends to be an older cable, but they usually are blue, and it's about 16 pins. This one is about a 6-pin here, so it's not the actual correct one, but it resembles what a VGA cable should be in your classroom. And that's what you need to actually project your computer screen up to the smartboard itself. Okay, so now that we have all our three pieces, everything's working, we're almost ready to get started to work on our smartboard. Not quite, there's still one more step we have to do, and that step is going to be called orientation of the smartboard. And here in my slide that I'm showing you today, I'm kind of showing you how the smartboard actually works, because a lot of times people get a little intimidated when they actually see the smartboard if things don't actually work, or they're clicking on the board, but it doesn't actually, nothing really happens to it. And the reason that is the smartboard has got 2 layers of PVC plastic. And in the middle, there's like a gap of air, like my slide is showing here. But there's actually also a little screen that you would see that's between those 2 pieces. And that screen is like something you'd find on a porch door or a screen door. And so that's the electrical field that you need to touch. And so here's the picture's demonstrating to you. You have to push in really hard from that first layer to touch that back layer of that PVC for it to understand that it's an actual command or your actual point of contact with the smartboard. So knowing that you have to push a little bit harder to use that comes to a nice rule that we have. Anytime that you touch the smartboard, you want to press it with intent. You want to know that you're actually in command of that particular board and dragging it there. Okay? So make sure you always use the board with press of intent. And the next thing we need to always remember too is that the point of contact is the point of release. So what does that mean actually? Point of contact is the point of release, meaning that once I press on my smartboard, I can drag my finger anywhere that I want, but it's where I leave off the board, it's where it's going to remember its actual point on the actual computer screen. So when you release from that, that's the point of contact. So always remember that particular feature there. And what's nice about the smartboard is a lot of times you don't have to actually use you can actually use a pen. Now this is one of the pens we have for the Smart Tech here for the Smart Overlay. But normally they have these other different multicolor pens that you can use, and they're just pieces of plastic. So since they're pieces of plastic, you can use that to be your marker. You can actually use your finger if you wanted to use that. And for our younger students, a lot of times they have a hard time understanding that pressure that they want to put on the board. And so what I recommend is actually get a spoon, like a plastic spoon or a regular spoon, and have them actually hold it in their hand, and they can actually use that to move the cursor around on the board. And if your classroom has a special needs child, you don't have to actually use again their hands. They cannot use their hands. They can actually use a tennis ball or a push ball, and they can use that to grasp to show the point of contact on the actual smartboard itself. So those are some really neat tips that I hope you guys can take from today. Actually, you know what? I made an error right now, and that happens all the time with actual smartboards. Is at my previous slide, I actually used a red pen, but the mistake that I made here when I touched the board is I didn't go back to being a cursor. And notice I didn't panic. So I'm going to go back to my selection screen tools here, and I'm going to go to being the select button here. So now I can actually hold this down here. Just give me 1 second. And actually show here some little different key points is touch of intent, as I mentioned earlier. Always apply constant pressure, and that the smartboard is a durable surface. It's pretty durable. You know, unless you go out there and scratch it, you can't really damage the board very much. The only thing we don't recommend, though, is to use those whiteboard pens. A lot of times, a lot of teachers want to use those smartboard pens as for actual interactive, not interactive, but the whiteboard pens. I can't think of the name for some reason right now. But anytime you use one of those plastic pens, even though you can erase it, it's erasable, it leaves a little bit of a shadow on the board. So please try not to use any type of marker, even if it's erasable or not. Just always try not to use that. And I believe that's going to be one of our last thing, and it's also key point. There's only one point of contact on the smartboard. A lot of times students want to rest or put their hand up as they're on the old chalkboard style and want to write. But on the smartboard, it's only one point of contact. On the newer boards that just came out this past year, the 800 series boards, there is 2 points of contact. But right now, with the boards we have in our district, we can only use 1 point of contact for that. So you go up here. So actually now what I'm going to show you here, now that we understand how the technology works for smartboard, let me go ahead and talk to you about the orientation of the smartboard. And so even though my slide says using interactive whiteboard, there's some 3 buttons that we're going to find there that's really important to us. And it's going to be how to access the on-screen keyboard, how to do a right click, and how to use the help button here. And the reason I put that slide first is when you orient the board, there are different ways that you can do that. And so as I advance my slide here, notice on the pen tray, I have these 2 buttons that are right there. The button on the left that you see, which is going to be this button right here, let me go to another pen. This button right here, of course, is going to be your keyboard button. So if you wanted to have a keyboard pop up on the actual TV screen, you can go and have your TV, you can have your keyboard pop up. And of course here is my right click button that I have. And that right click button allows me to do commands. Because 95% of the times you're using the smartboard, you want to go ahead and use, it's going to be a left clicking where it's going to execute something. But once in a while we need to do a right clicking where we have to actually select or have a command that has to be done. And so that's where the right button is going to be. Now why is that important right now when we're actually learning about the orientation? Well, one of the really cool things about smartboard is if I was to go and press these 2 buttons at the same time, hold them down at the same time, I'm going to get an orientation screen that's going to come up. Now, I can't do that here on my particular board because I don't have that particular feature with me. But the alternate place that you can go ahead and orient the board is actually going to be on your actual computer screen. So let me go focus back to my computer screen right now, and I can show you where to find that particular button. So I'm going to end my project here, my slideshow. I'm going to go back to where it was. I'm going to minimize my screen. And there I go. And hopefully there it goes. Now I'm back to my desktop that I have here. Now if you noticed on my screen, to the bottom right, I'm going to have an icon in my system tray that's going to be a blue square with a white circle around it. That's going to be the SmartTech drivers or SmartTech tools. And so when I click on that button right there, my smartboard is just a little bit off, my orientation. And sometimes things come up when we don't want it to, and that's okay. It's kind of really hard to orient the smart TV that I have here, that smart overlay that I have. You won't have this much problem in your classroom because this one actually has some field that comes out that once I break the field, it shows my selection. And let me try to get that one more time. And I'm not getting it. So I'm going to go back to my computer screen, my physical computer, to do this, and that's okay. Sometimes those things happen. And when I go up to my screen here, notice now I have a selection tool that came up. Once I hit that blue button, let me go back to it again, it went away. On the third set of tools, third set there, it says the word orient. When I click on that orient, and everything right now is just being a little fussy, and that's okay. Notice, just don't panic. You just keep on going with what your presentation is going to be. Here, once I press the orientation button, I have this screen that you see here. Now, there's a series of dots, and on the upper left-hand corner here, I've got a dot that actually has like a little crosshairs or a target that's right there. What I want to do is I actually want to go ahead and click on that button and release it, and it let my pen know, or let my cursor know where my finger is. And so I'm not going to do that on this smart board because right now I've already oriented the board as best I could, but I'm going to show you how the process actually works though. Once I click on the very first one, that little screen here, I got to follow the direction that it wants to go in, and it's going to go from top to bottom, left to right. So every time I click on that, it's going to go left, it's going to go top, middle, bottom, to middle, top, middle, 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 bottom, to right top, right middle, right bottom. And once I hit that last particular piece, it'll actually go ahead and go back to my normal desktop screen. And so since my board's already oriented, let's pretend I went through that process. To go back to my regular screen on my keyboard, I can just go and hit the escape button. And when I hit the escape button, everything's back to normal, back to where it was. And now my finger is a cursor. So hopefully when I press my finger here, notice that my finger, the cursor lines up where my finger is. Now, I can't see how well that it is on TV. Hopefully, it's showing up that it's pretty much oriented the way it should be, but that cursor should be pretty much below my finger when I actually am using the smartboard itself. One last factor, one last thing I wanted to mention to you all, when you're actually orienting the board is, remember previously on my other slide I showed you, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. So on a smartboard, if you really wanted to get a really precise feel, you could actually start anywhere, and I'm going to go ahead and mess up my orientation here a little bit. And there it goes. Let me start it again. I'm holding it down, and things never work the way you want it to. But normally, once I press down here, I can let go. Try that one more time. I should start anywhere. There it goes. It's working for me now. I press on it, and I start. I'm holding it down, applying constant pressure, and now I'm be able to orient my board here. And I'm doing it really quickly. And so where I leave off is where my board is going to be. Put my pen down, and I've got an overlay screen here, and that's okay. When I overlay, I can set my pen there and I actually release it, there it goes. And that pretty much wraps it up for orientation. I hope you learned a lot today, and I appreciate your time with me today. Thank you.